So my name is Morabito. I'm the Director of Search Engine Optimization at an agency here in the city called Women's Marketing Flying Point Digital. Women's Marketing is sort of a larger print media traditional organization, and Flying Point Digital is a performance digital organization. I've been doing SEO and digital marketing for over 8 years, probably going on 9 now. Last year we were nominated for Best SEO Team by the Drum Search Awards, and this year we won it. And I work with a team of 6 incredibly smart SEOs, 2 of which are here today to join us. All right. So, as you guys know, we're here to talk about voice search. And so, mind the next slide if you would. There we go. Here is why it matters. At today's point, where we are today, Google has announced that 20% of all mobile searches for them are happening on mobile. Of all voice searches, 22% are looking for local brick and mortar businesses, and 21% are looking for fun and entertainment. So if you're in hospitality, entertainment, or any type of local brick and mortar business, at this point, voice search is a sizable portion of the searches that are leading to your website. 60.5 million people use voice search, and Alpine AI, which is a partner of ours, estimates that there are 1 billion voice searches occurring per month, and this is based on their own data from their own platform for voice, which is one of the first voice Alexa analytics platforms. So moving on. The rise of voice search, if it's one of these things where you have any doubt that it is going to be the future, I would just suggest looking at the metrics for how mobile played out. In 2009, mobile made up just 0.7% of all searches on the web. At this point, it makes up 52%, and it's growing every year. It's surpassed the number of searches that are occurring on desktop. We in the industry think that it's not that voice search is going to overtake any type of screen search, but really will just be the third type of search that we're making as searchers. Next slide. So, you know, in 2009, there was a lot of familiar stuff going on. It wasn't that long ago, so pretty soon we'll be looking back at today, thinking about the things that were happening today when our fully voice search world has been realized. Looking at how these voice searches are occurring, the market penetration for home assistant devices and voice-enabled devices in the last 2 years has gone from 2 million to 400 million in just 2 years. And that's really based on not only the rise of voice assistants on your device, but also the market penetration of things like Alexa and the Google Home. At this point, consumers are searching different things on voice search than they have been before, and it's more than just what time is it or call mom. It's getting into actually what's the best scuba gear or where might I find this. So position V is basically a term that I coined for the ranking voice search result. In SEO, we talk a lot about the featured snippet result as position 0. And in voice search, the #1 ranking position would be position V. So next slide here. So basically, the framework for how to optimize against voice search looks a lot like what I'm calling my Greek temple here. And at the foundation, you have traditional SERP rankings. And this is when basically Google doesn't have anything else to output. And this is, quite honestly, the area where many people have probably experienced voice search and said, I don't see how this is going to be the future. It's just my assistant giving me a handful of links I could have found on the web anyway. And that is indeed not a very exciting result. But where it's going is Google is trying to serve more of what we call featured snippets, which is where the answer is read aloud directly from the voice assistant. And these are your sort of quick answers for informational queries or research queries. There's also local 3-pack rankings, and that is something where if you are the #1 local 3-pack ranking in the maps, you'll then be served as the singular voice search result. And so it makes ranking and performing in local search all that much more important. And then structured data is another way where Google is starting to pull in more of the content and information from our websites and turning that into speakable voice search results. And the last sort of frontier of this, and the most interesting area, is really around the creation of a voice action or skill. And this is really where I feel the future of voice search and the future of voice marketing and optimization is really going to sit. And that involves actually creating what's essentially an app for voice. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So we're going to talk about each of these areas and how you can actually optimize your website and things that you should be doing to address each of these areas kind of depending on what industry you're in. So at that, could everyone sort of just go around the table a little bit and tell me, there's really not that many of you, I know what these two do. So if we could tell me a little about what you do and sort of, what types of things are you looking to learn about voice search?
We do digital marketing and e-commerce.
Okay.
So,
so these two are for you, structured data and creating an action. And I'll speak directly to those.
probably, and I think as well as you're looking at content to support what you're looking to do
Sure.
and creating relationships, the other things come into play. So I'm trying to just get a holistic view.
Absolutely. Great.
So retail merchant side.
Okay.
So again, just trying to.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Our agency, I did mention this, we focus on retail and e-commerce clients supporting transactions. So that's really where I play, and that's where I'm going with this stuff. So I can definitely speak specifically to how to actually turn it into conversions.
I do SEO for a pharmaceutical company, and I work on primarily the over-the-counter brands.
Okay.
I actually, for our team, made a voice search scorecard kind of a thing, so I'm looking to see how I can improve that.
Cool. You should tell me how you like mine at the end. I have a little scorecard.
We work together.
Okay. Great.
But I work on a lot of the same brands as her, as well as I do like SEO for retailers, in particular for Amazon and Walmart optimizing product pages.
Awesome. I want to hear from you about what's going on. We do a little bit of Amazon optimization, but we're curious about like Target, other Walmart, other marketplaces.
Just rolling out to Target this year.
Okay.
Putting it on Walmart for like our over-counter pharmaceutical meds.
Okay, great.
Hi, I've got a freelance agency. I've got
Cool.
10 clients. I just really want to deliver the service for as much as possible to
Awesome.
clients and just be in the forefront of what's next.
Great, cool. So side note, I do freelance too. So I actually built one of these actions for a freelance client ingesting their FAQ information. It's a jet ski tour company. So not super complex, but no matter where you're at, there's stuff to get into. Any folks back there want to? How does this play in a B2B environment? Okay, I can definitely try to speak to that. Not something I've explored too much, but there's definitely some ways. Yeah, I would say we'll dive into it when we get into the chatbot thing, but that's really probably where you're going to look. All right, great. All right, so that'll help me cater the next few slides here. So go on. So local search. This is something that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, this local 3-pack map of maps results when you enter a query. These particular results are what, as I said, will be read aloud by your voice assistant when you ask it something. And in many cases, it's just reading either the first or second location. And so it's all that much more important to be in that spot. In order to optimize against this, what I recommend is if you're not using a local listing management service, either Yext, Moz, I don't recommend Birdeye, but basically a reputable local listing management aggregator that makes sure that your name, address, phone number, your data, all of your information is completely consistent across all those places where it's listed. That is a critical part of ranking in the 3-pack, but it's also a critical part of being found in voice search. Of course, actively seeking reviews from your happy customers. So if you don't at sort of enterprise level, it's definitely more challenging. Maybe on your side, if you've not given your clients a review ask handout that walks them through, you're nodding with me, you probably have, okay. All right, so focusing in on that and then connecting the dots for them and say, listen, you want me to be on the cutting edge, you want me to help you optimize for voice search. Remember that review conversation we had every year for the last whatever, right? Okay, they're still important, go get reviews. Building location pages, this is something you may or may not be aware of, but if you have a number of locations, anything over 1, you need to have individual location pages on your website supporting each of those. Now, if you're dealing with a bunch of retailers, maybe you don't need to list every Walmart in its own individual page on like, a Pfizer website or something like that. But there might be opportunity if you had your own doors to leverage that by creating your own location pages. And then make sure to take advantage of new features. So on the next slide here, we're going to see some new features from Google. Back in the day when I started SEO, you could put in a business description. That went away. Now it's back. And so if you've not been into any of your pages for your locations and seen these new features, I recommend going back in, adding in whatever information is being asked of you in the new Google My Business profile. The description is new, the services are new, and you can use these services in creative ways. I work with a psychologist who I've put in every area of practice that he has as a service in there. Doesn't really display on the profile. Is Google using that? I don't know, can't hurt. Right? So making sure that this data is absolutely filled out. And categories tend to evolve. So if you have a business where you've gone in here to select what category your locations show up in, and you've never really loved that category that's offered to you, I can tell you from firsthand experience, it changes regularly. And so I've gone back in and found before I didn't have a logical category, now there's a category that perfectly defines what my business does. And so regularly check the categories, make sure that you're filling out every aspect, make sure that you're regularly adding photos. This is something I've heard, not just, basically heard sort of chatter about, that there might be a ranking boost to just simply regularly updating your photos. So if you're regularly adding new photos to your My Business listing, even if it's just different interior shots of the same store, that can have a ranking boost showing Google that you're relevant, you're updating stuff, you're there. And yeah, fill out services. So go on to the next slide here, if you wouldn't mind. So now we're on to featured snippets. So featured snippets are something I imagine a lot of you are familiar with, but I'll sort of cover it. It's basically the relatively new type of result, probably about 3 years old at this point, where Google is directly answering your query with these sort of featured boxes directly at the top of the search result. So depending on what type of information you're trying to rank, these could either be seen as a blessing or a curse. Websites like Celebrity Net Worth saw their whole livelihood get dropped out from under them when Google just started putting in the celebrity net worth without citing a source because it was public domain information. So anything that's public domain information, and I think I might touch on that on the next slide. Let's test my memory here. Nope, okay, go back. So anything that's public domain information, they'll just pull in. So election results, the download, well, that's not a good example, or the age of the president. They don't need to cite you. But if you're focusing on information that isn't public domain, that isn't something that they can just pull in, they'll need to cite you with a link back to your website, which will earn you better traffic, but also puts you into the voice search result. So going on to the next slide here, we'll talk a little bit about the evolution of this. Over the last 3 years, featured snippets have seen a 60% increase. And a lot of this is what's fueling the growth of voice search. So if you're interested in voice search, you got to be looking at what's going on with your featured snippet results. And this is something for a pharmaceutical brand, for an e-commerce brand. There's opportunity there, even if it's not directly correlated to one of your product pages, to go after featured snippets. And I feel like the rise of these featured snippets is obviously correlated to the rise of voice search. The more they're trying to put into a machine-readable format, the more that they can serve voice results for the growing demand for voice. All right, next slide here. So this is basically a rapid-fire overview of our featured snippet audit at the agency and how we go about finding featured snippet opportunities. And by the way, this deck is on SlideShare. So if you can get it on SlideShare, and I'll hook you up with the deck. But what we do is we start by generating a list of around 1,000 related questions. And we do this through using Google Suggest API tools like Answer the Public or Uber Suggest to basically put in a highly relevant term to our industry that we know we want to drive traffic for. And then we build a list of questions around that. So in this case, I put in wedding dresses, and all of those questions around it are questions that folks have around wedding dresses. Or in this example here, this is about blowouts. We work with a major chain of blowout stores that you might be familiar with. And so we put in blowout and we get all these different questions. And in this particular case, I'm using Ahrefs. Moz will allow you to do this, or SEMrush, I believe, allow you to do this. But basically, we're going to a tool that's going to enable us to analyze the keyword set and figure out what SERP features are displayed for those. So from that list of a single keyword to a expanded list of Uber suggest or related terms, we then go into finding which of these actually have featured snippets. And then from there, we can actually just either jump to creating that content directly, or another approach I really like to use is to figure out, oh, sorry, it's really hot, figure out which of the queries I don't think are being adequately answered. And so Google is so desperate to pull these things in that they'll regularly pull in really crappy answers. And so you can build your list of keywords that have a featured snippet and then manually review them for quality and ask yourself, is this truly the best result? If not, you have a pretty good shot of being able to play in that space. If you can do a better job of answering it succinctly on the page, then there's a chance you can go after it. If it's a killer answer and it's being answered by Wikipedia, forget about it. Go on to the next one. But if you look at these and you say, gosh, I don't know that that's how I would answer it, then that's a probably good place for you to play. So go ahead on to the next slide here. This is okay, I'm ahead of myself. This is how to spot an easy win. So in this case, it's a little bit meta, but I'm looking at my sort of catchphrase of position V or my coined term here, prop term. And by looking at that result, I can see that I'm asking about position V. Oops, sorry, I hit the mic there. But they're actually thinking that this is position versus time in a mathematical equation. And so right now, Google's not really getting what I'm asking here, and this would be an example of a place where I could potentially go after that term. Now, I wrote a blog post about this like 3 months ago. I've been trying to rank for that. It hasn't worked yet. They're pretty sure that it's about math, and so it's not totally surefire in this exact example, but conceptually the idea of a place where you don't really think it's matching the intent properly is where I would try to play. Go on to the next slide here, please. This is sort of a little format that I use, and this is actually what's on the blog page and how I'm going after it. But you want to create content for featured snippets that's concise, to the point. You leveraging bullet lists, leveraging numbered lists, ordered lists, unordered lists, numbered lists, ordered lists, tables, bullets, any type of structural HTML element is really good at helping Google understand that this is something that they can parse out from the page really easily. Additionally, there are new structured data markup types called speakable that are intended for news sites. That's something that could also potentially help you to earn that featured snippet. If Google's looking at that piece of text and saying this is speakable, it stands to reason that they're going to look at that and say that this is featured snippetable too, because that's what they're using featured snippets for. So on to the next slide here. All right, so structured data is kind of the other pillar that I'd like people to think about. Structured data is a type of data that feeds the rich results that Google provides. It was, if you're not familiar, a project in conjunction with Yahoo, Bing, Google, basically all of the large search engines to come up with a centralized and agreed upon format of marking up data on websites so that machines could understand it. And it's really kind of a step in the direction toward entity-first indexing, which is where Google is going. We're not going to get into that today, but basically you want to ensure that any markup type that's available that you're leveraging on your site. So on to the next slide here, if you wouldn't mind. Structured data markup types are broken out into 6 primary different enhanced features from Google in their guidelines, and then 17 different content types. However, on schema.org, there's literally hundreds of different types of structured data. And so the one thing I'd like to encourage people to do is to try to get out ahead of structured data trends by leveraging anything on schema.org that you feel like is appropriate and makes sense and was the intended purpose of that markup for your content. Don't wait for Google to have a featured snippet or featured snippet enhancement, featured result feature guide enhancement here for that particular query, because they've had a history of turning things into a result based on the usage. We'll see that in just a second if we go on to the next slide here. So look at what happened to jobs. If anyone has searched for a job recently, now you're seeing this, this very nifty result that looks like a three-pack here. And if we just sort of advance one more, if you were a job board, you might be saying something along the lines of, click it. Oh, one more. They took our rankings, right? They took our jobs. I don't know if anyone's a South Park fan. But basically, this really ruffled a lot of feathers for people who didn't have their stuff marked up, because now all of a sudden everyone's going to the markup. Or going to the results provided directly by Google, which are fed by markup. And so while at times SEOs can get concerned that by feeding Google all of their data in markup, why do they even need my website anymore? There's really no running from it, and you're basically going to either get left behind, or you're going to be riding that wave with the people who actually were able to get their job listed here. And there's nothing precluding you from being, like our website, our agency website, I could use job structured data and get into this. It's not just LinkedIn and Glassdoor that are eligible for this type of result. And so if you were a person who was in jobs and you looked at schema.org before and you said, nah, that's not for us, there's no visible SERP enhancement. Why am I going to, there's no star rating, there's no new or whatever under the product, new product availability and price. Why bother with it? There's no tangible impact that I can see today. And I can tell you right now, my team might even tell you, I used to tell them that too. Like, if there's no immediate impact, don't bother, right? When this happened, and when Gary from Google, I always mess up his last name, so I'm just going to say Gary from Google, said that I really encourage you to use structured data in any format, and then this happened, the writing on the wall for me was basically start thinking about structured data in a lot broader of a sense. And beyond the fact that there's SERP enhancements that might be right around the corner for your industry, there's a lot of benefit to just having Google understand what your content is about by looking at this machine readable text and giving them that understanding of this is the name, this is the address. Like, they're good at parsing that stuff out, but to just simply structure it for them on the page is a very different thing. All right, on to the next slide here. So as I said, they asked for it, right? The other thing that Gary said is that they did this because they noticed an uptick in implementation and usage of the structured data markup type. So the SERP features that we're talking about here and the ones that we're saying, don't bother, wait, it'll come, are actually impacted by our usage. So if there's a structured data markup type you want to see have a SERP enhancement in the future, vote for it by using it, particularly bigger companies, right? When bigger companies start to use this stuff, they pay attention. And so things like how to, which is a sort of fringe markup type, speakable, which they just now folded into an actual thing that they're using. There's a lot of opportunity to just sort of spend time on schema.org and think critically about your content and then mark up anything that you can. All right, next slide. I'm really bad at this today. I keep forgetting that I already have a slide for the point that I just made. So make sure you go to schema.org and look at all the different markup types. There's also this page, which is super helpful. This is the releases page on schema.org. These are all of the things that have just come into the library, or things that are in basically, or come into the vocabulary, or things that are in testing. For instance, this tourist attraction stuff was in sort of a testing phase and now is actually part of the schema library. So if you're a tourist attraction, go for it. If you're how-to, or you're offering how-to information, I should say, more and more detailed information is coming into the vocabulary every day. And so if you check this out regularly and peruse the existing vocabularies, it's a really good place to start to enhance your site. Here's a couple other resources. So if you don't know how to write JSON, you don't know how to do microdata, structured data, you can use technicalseo.com's SEO tool, the schema markup generator. It's pretty limited in the types of markup that you can employ, but it'll basically give you plug-and-play fields where you can punch in the data that you're looking to mark up, and it will just spit out the JSON. I encourage you guys, if you're really into SEO, to try to learn a little bit about JSON and start playing with it. But if you're not wanting to do it, there's also the markup helper from Google, and that's at webmasters/markup helper. And this is actually a really little known tool that, very much like the technicalseo.com tool, you can punch in what type of page you have, you can put the page in there, and then it'll let you highlight pieces of information on the page: address, phone number, if it's a product, price, availability, photos, and you just tell, this is the photo, this is the price, and then it will give you what that JSON block will look like. And so you don't need to know anything about JavaScript or JSON or anything to do this. You can go there, get that piece of code, go to your dev team and say, I need this on every page with that data. And that's exactly how we do it at the agency too. We don't put in the structured data on every page across the website. We'll look at page types, say this is the markup type that you need for this page, and then work with the development team to get that implemented. Next slide. All right, so this is kind of the next and perhaps most interesting frontier of where all this goes. Voice assistants. So all of those other elements are things that exist in both the mobile, desktop, and voice world. These are things that really only exist in voice assistants. So on to the next slide here. Actions and skills are basically like an app that go on your voice assistant or on your Alexa or your Google Home. Right now, what I'm really excited about is how blue ocean this world is. There is not a lot of people developing these. In fact, I built one in my free time, and Google sent me a free Google Home and a t-shirt. And they're like, thank you for building on the actions. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not a developer, but I'll take the free Google Home. So they're really desperate for people and brands to build. And in fact, Amazon is super desperate for brands to be building experiences on Alexa. And they will partner with you and they will help you to get that done because they want wide adaptation of their products, and they want them to be very, very rich experiences for people because it helps them sell more crap on Amazon. So literally getting your brand message out there today is part of Amazon's agenda. So it's like no time like the present to leverage that, use their, like, if, you know, Michelle is the woman who handles agency partnerships with the Alexa thing, like if Michelle wants to help you get through the approval process and get your skill, that's not going to last forever, because when everyone's doing it, no one's going to be interested in helping you over at Amazon. But right now, people at Amazon are like, please, brands, come, let us help you, let us show you the way. And so it's a unique moment where Amazon and Google really want us to be producing this stuff. And so the cool thing about these is they're able to know and do things that search regularly can't. You can get into very personalized conversations with many multitudes of possibilities that you can take that user down and create a really personalized experience for them, where you're doing everything from answering questions to guiding them to purchase. So on to the next slide here. As I said, fourth time now, Google and Alexa and Bing really want you to do this. And the payoff for helping them to do this is to be an early mover in an evolving landscape. All three companies, Cortana, so Bing, Alexa, and the Google Assistant, have really extensive resource libraries on this. There's a lot of information about how to go out and do this, and in fact, they're spinning it like, you don't need to be a developer, come build these experiences for your company. And really that is the case. I'm not a developer and I was able to build one. You guys totally can too if you wanted to. So this is what I was talking about, opportunity in the landscape. I was literally like jumping up and down at my desk after a call with someone who developed these, the Alpine AI, who I've mentioned in here a few times. And I was talking to a client who is a makeup brand. And he approached them and said, you guys got to do this thing. And I was like, I don't know if it's worth it for them. And he's like, no, trust me. Go search makeup in the Explore section. Or he said, think about being listed in the Explore section. And maybe I went to search it. And I realized right now at the time, there was literally no actions in Google for the word makeup. Nothing. So imagine going to the App Store and searching, cold remedies, or searching dresses or whatever consumer product that you're dealing with, and having there be no results. And then tomorrow you build something and you're number one. In fact, you're the only one that has that thing. That's exactly the kind of opportunity that's out there right now, and that's exactly the kind of opportunity I realized for one of my freelance clients. If you search jet ski right now, there's like 2 actions out there, and he's one of them, and it's an FAQ for a local jet ski tour company here in New York City. Is he getting droves of traffic from it yet? No. We're just figuring this stuff out. But basically, I mean, wouldn't you want to be the only one for your keyword in a marketplace of apps and experiences that is rapidly growing? I know I want my clients to be there. So this is what I'm super excited about. And even the people with money are completely screwing this up. Netflix is one of the best content curation companies in the entire world. They know more about what you like than most other companies that you deal with on a regular basis, maybe aside from Google and Facebook. This is their action. You say, okay, Netflix, or you say, okay, Google, what's new on Netflix? And it's a list of their 4 latest releases, not personalized to you whatsoever. They could say, all right, sure, what's your email? Or they could say, sure, what are the last 3 things you watched? And I'll tell you the next new 3 things that are on. And they can do all of this. They're just choosing not to. And so what's happening right now, there's a lot of big brands who are coming in and they're realizing this blue ocean opportunity, and they're really eager to get something in there, and they put out crap. And so even if you look in your space and you see if there's something there, there's a good chance you can outdo it. There's like a Lancome app that came up shortly after this, and I was like, oh no, they beat me to it. And it's totally lame. It's about one product in their assortment, and it's about their night cream. So what are the steps for, and it's like they're totally missing the point. Yeah, I get it. You're very excited about your new night cream, but no one wants to have an app on their phone just for your night cream. And so even the big brands that have money, that have resource, they're not getting it right. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us marketers to go out there and actually add to this. Another part of the reason why marketers look at voice search, anyone who is skeptic and say, I don't know, this isn't where, I don't think this is going anywhere anytime fast, is because there's not enough developers creating enticing experiences to get that wide market adaptation. And this, to me, is the missing link. On to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind here. So there's some opportunity right now, even if you're not ready to build one of these, if you're already doing, if you're publishing news, if you're publishing recipes, if you're publishing podcasts, and by the way, my SEO tip for the month is like, do a podcast. Even if you don't think a podcast matters for you, or try to get on other people's podcasts, because podcasts are going to be a bigger thing coming up soon. But basically, podcasts, recipes, publishers of news will automatically be turned into an action in Google. So all you have to do is make sure that you have your stuff marked up appropriately, and make sure that you're using AMP if you're a news publisher, and your stuff will automatically be turned into an action that will be surfaced when people ask the Google Assistant. So that's really cool. And then you can also claim your website. So if you're one of these people who is producing that type of content, you can actually claim your action through this page up here, actions, content actions. And so someone here might already have one for one of your brands, and we don't even know about it. On to the next slide, please. So this is the part that totally blew my mind. I just want to, how are we doing on time here? Okay, this is the part that really blew my mind. How do people get to these things? So I've got a skill, I've got an action, it's in the marketplace. I call it the marketplace because it's not really an app store and they don't have a catchy name for it. So it's out there for people to get. How do people get to it? In Google, at least, there are 2 different ways. The first of which is called an explicit invocation. And this is people asking for your app or skill by name. You say, okay, Google, talk to See the City Jet Ski, which is the one that I built. Or, okay, Google, talk to Wayne's Bikes. And Wayne's Bikes would reply to you. And at that point, you're in a branded conversation directly with Wayne's Bikes, which from a there's a cameraman. From a B2B perspective, right, can save you time for basic conversations that support reps on the front lines might be having over and over again. You can route them through a chatbot as an example, or an action. this same action technology that you build through, let's say, Dialogflow or whatever, can be applied to any appliance. So essentially, the brains of the action could be a Facebook chatbot. It could be a text chatbot. So instead of calling up a rep, you text someone, and that same logic that you're using to build the voice assistant is replying to people answering basic support questions that might come up. So one example I could throw out in your direction, I apologize. But the really exciting part for me is what's called implicit invocations. And this is when you can say, okay, Google, book me an appointment to fix my bike. And so instead of one of those 4 other places coming up, a featured snippet, a local 3-pack, a traditional SERP result, 10 blue links, you're going to then have Google say, okay, talk to Wayne's Bikes. I just want to book an appointment. Well, now you're in Wayne's Bikes having a branded conversation with Wayne's Bikes. There is no out. You can just go back to the search results, or you can book your bike tune-up with Wayne, because now you're in Wayne's action. You're in the voice assistant with Wayne. So in my case, we have implicit invocations for, okay, Google, I want to take a jet ski tour in NYC. And at that point, I can direct them into the Google Assistant app that I built for the jet ski tour clients, as an example. And this is, like I said, this is where it gets really exciting. Basically, the message here is non-branded queries into a voice assistant can turn into a conversation where you're actually talking with your audience versus talking at them through a search result. One more time, if you wouldn't mind. So making your own is actually way easier than you'd think. This is the actual visual interface for where you could build one through what's called Dialogflow. So if you're a pretty technical person, you built a website or 2, or even built like a WordPress blog, I think you're kind of nodding along with me. You go in there, you add what's called an intent. You put in what are the particular training phrases, what pulls up this intent. And you do a multitude of them, but you don't need to go crazy here, because this thing, Dialogflow, it used to be called API.ai, and it's Google's AI technology. So you're riding on the back of all of Google's technology development around AI and their natural language understanding and processing. So I could probably get away with putting in 1 or 2 training phrases and throw anything at it, and it will come up with what I'm asking for in terms of the response. You can program links, photos, really advanced stuff in these responses, and if you've got the time, you can build a really simple and straightforward FAQ app, launch it. As I said, Google was like, please give us your skill. They sent me free stuff because I got it. And so it's pretty straightforward to build one of these out. And it's just really about thinking about the right application and thinking about the right training phrases that you're going to use as your implicit invocation. Those are like your keywords. And there's a lot that remains to be seen about just how many of those are actually available. In other words, like how many implicit invocations can you actually get Google to then direct people directly to your app instead of serving a more traditional result. But there's a lot of opportunity there. So I want to leave some time for questions. The next few things are just kind of about how you can get started with this. Alpine AI is a company that I partnered with to get some of this information and to really, I credit Adam to starting to help me to learn about a little bit of this stuff. They build these experiences, basic FAQ chatbots for $1,000 sign up, $500 a month. You're on their SaaS platform and you can punch in questions in a very easy way. And that's what they offer. And we offer support for that at our agencies.